Hello everyone. I'm back a little bit early from my break from YouTube, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending if you like my content. Which, by the way, the like button is down there if you do like my content. So, today I'm going to be talking about the retro revival. It's one of these things that every now and then you hear the term come up, and you don't really see it until it's here. There's no kind of signs of it. All of a sudden, everything is worth ridiculous amounts of money, and there's a huge amount of interest in, say, collectibles or clothing or whatever it is that's around that time period or era. And right now, it is the 1990s. For many years, this has come and gone. People lose interest in trends. A lot of younger people say, "Oh my god, I missed out on this trend because I was literally not even born. How do I get my piece of that?" And a lot of our culture is surrounded by people who remember this stuff, whatever the subject is, and people who don't remember it but wish to have a piece of it, almost like archive it. And then inevitably, these items, these things will probably go back on eBay a couple of years' time at a massive loss. That's the cynical side of this. That all of this is essentially thrifting. It is thrifting done in a way that is based on trends, based on interest of the general populace, and also based on heavily, very heavily, I would argue, based on manipulation. So my interest is TCGs, and specifically living TCGs that are alive. TCGs that are dead, I'm a little bit interested in them, more as an archaeological perspective. Uh, if you look at things like Duel Masters, there is some interest in that. Not a lot, though, I've got to be honest. Uh, from me or literally anybody else. But when I hear that there is people out there who literally don't care about it, don't really want it, want to get rid of these cards for pennies, my mind goes, well, time to get it, act like a magpie and hoard all of those. A little bit like the MLP TCG. Nobody's interested in that, so my brain goes, well, I really would like to become extra interested in that. So, in other words, my approach to all of this is anti trend. It is against the trend. When there is low interest, that is when I'm the most interested because, quite frankly, I don't want to move in the directions that other people are moving in. And that's not just being kind of uh, opposing other people. Not really. It's more so out of whenever there's one of these retro revivals and huge spike in interest in certain items, something else inevitably becomes devalued, or the value stays the same, and it was already a pretty good value. So my brain kind of orients towards looking at a lot of dead TCGs that are never coming back, and a lot of collectibles that nobody cares about. Not because of any kind of intrinsic value to them, not because of any nostalgic value to them, not even because of money, because money is not the be all and end all of this for me. It might be for you, but it isn't necessarily for me. I own plenty of stuff that's absolutely worthless, and I love that stuff quite happily, and I'm quite happy to enjoy this worthless stuff. Uh, whether it be Bakugan, whether it be, or Bakugan, as Americans insist on calling it, uh, whether it was originally old Pokemon cards. Old Pokemon cards were absolutely valueless for a very, very long time. Nobody gave a crap about them until they did. My interest in all of this is, yes, somewhat to make money. I can't deny everybody wants to make money from the thing that makes them joy, or creates joy. It is one of those natural human things. But also to actually keep the thing in decent enough condition, not go through the kind of chaos of trying to make sure that it is pristine, a grade A or anything like that. There is no such thing as a grade A Bakugan. Uh, it's not happening. But to keep it in decent enough condition that I can look back on it and enjoy it myself, and bring these pieces of my personal history, pieces from my life, into the future. Because the things that we own, in a lot of ways, are a big part of who we are. Obviously, people might disagree with that. People might say that you shouldn't be attached to objects, but we live in a material world. And I'm a material girl. No. We live in a material world, and we are quite honestly going to experience attachments as material beings to material objects. And that's perfectly fine. That's been perfectly fine for thousands of years, if not since the birth of humanity. Humans have always made trinkets, and since humans make trinkets, everybody has wanted to keep a trinket. Old people, young people, it doesn't matter. Everybody keeps something. So that's one aspect of it. Collecting for me is about bringing something from your past along with you. Bringing with you something that brings you joy, and making sure that it is with you, that you can share it and enjoy it with other people, or just simply put it on a shelf. Make sure that it's with you so that you can have it for whatever your purpose is. That's one aspect of it. And I think a lot of people really do forget that these things that we bring with us, these objects, these toys, these collectibles, even if it's not toys and collectibles, even if it's a piece of clothing you really like, or anything like that, people forget that it is worth time. It is worth keeping, or worthwhile rather, keeping these to remember a time that is better, or worse, perhaps, if your mind is that way inclined, or if the object holds particular sour notes in your kind of sense of sentimentality. Sentimentality, it's a hard word to say. So, yes, collecting is a way that humans can make sure that the past travels with them, and that memories continue with them. And if you're really lucky, those memories and those objects attached to those memories can pass on to the next generation, and then the next generation. Inevitably, though, of course, time erases all, and those memories will become snippets, kind of pieces, and we will forget a lot of what we have attached to these objects because of our passing, because of mistold stories, because of the object being sold without the story attached. Lots of things like that. There's so many factors that go into influencing the survival of the stories that we tell about objects. But when we're talking about collectibles and trinkets, and I guess as some people used to say, silly things, toys, there can still be a lot of sentimental value, shall we say, attached to it. Because, for example, I have in my binder that is absolutely worthless and is not the Pokemon one, lots of Yu-Gi-Oh cards that are damaged. What's the point? Put them in the bin, right? Well, no, because these cards are unwanted, unloved. If I did not keep them, then they would be in a landfill. They would be destroyed. And that kind of breaks my heart because there's some kind of really lovely cards there, completely unplayable. Huge gouges out of them and water damage and all kinds of things. But I can't let them go because they're old Yu-Gi-Oh cards that have value to me. And this is the issue that I've got as well. This is, I guess, part B or part 2 of the video. When we are looking at what should be valuable, and I mean in terms of financial value, when we're looking at that, what should be valued? What should we say is worth what? You know, that is the kind of thing that I think about a lot, especially with all the card games and all the collectibles. Because it really doesn't make sense to say that, for example, and this is one that I personally have experienced literally today, Go-Go's Crazy Bones, which were a big part of my life, the 90s edition specifically, where they were mostly unpainted and just pieces of plastic injection molded. Who's to say that they're worth £1 each? They weren't ever worth £1 each. They're mass-produced plastic. But they're becoming rare. So the result of that is people assign intrinsic value. Or, I guess, arbitrary intrinsic value. Even if hundreds of thousands or millions of these particular versions of these Go-Go's Crazy Bones were distributed globally, and they're on global marketplaces for pennies. You put the collection together, and to some people it is worth silly money. Again, all of this is arbitrary. All of this is down to the will and the intent and the interest of people. So, as a result of that, we're not going to get anything that makes any kind of sense, are we? Why does it make any sense that these old collectibles should be worth so much? And I'm not just picking on Go-Go's Crazy Bones. But it also points to the volatility of all of this. When the interest goes away, and your product is either sold or it doesn't sell, and you are holding on to a very large amount of these things that you don't see any value in, well, are your prices still going to be ridiculously high? No. Chances are you are going to either throw them out, give them to a charity shop, or fire sell them. And this is something that always happens with collectibles. When the trend ends, when the interest ends, somebody, somewhere, will start the trend of fire selling them. Get rid of them, get them off the books, get them out of your house. And when they do, other people watch and they see and they do the same. Well, when they do, you see others pick up the same trend. Then the market panics. Again, there's a market for everything. So the market panics, and everybody fire sales theirs. Everybody says, right, the ship is sinking, extract as much value as physically possible from these objects, and get rid of them. Which points to going all the way back to the beginning, what everybody sort of forgets or conveniently doesn't really want to see, which is these objects, these items, these things, cards, whatever it is, always go down. And like I said, I'm thankful that a YouTuber who I don't speak to, I've watched quite regularly, who was one of the inspirations behind me starting this channel. He's actually acknowledged, yeah, the bubble has to pop. The bubble will pop one day on Pokemon TCG in specific, but the bubble has to and will pop more specifically, and I guess more generally, around all of these other items. Go-Go's Crazy Bones, Pokemon cards, collectibles, Funko Pops used to be the absolute shit. Now nobody cares about them. Literally, people have warehouses full of Funko Pops they are desperate to get rid of. And chances are they're looking at a Beanie Baby situation. There's another good example, Beanie Babies, but it was a little bit before my time. So in the end, you only lose by collecting. So, I mean, maybe you can make some money along the way. Maybe you can sell some cards that is enough to get you by, just like I did. But in the end, most people fail. Most cards I've listed, only half of them have sold. Most things that I've listed, only half of them sold within the eBay 30-day sales thing and had to be relisted. Some of the items that I've actually managed to sell on my eBay page only were able to sell upon the second or third time selling them. But every time you do that, you risk exposing yourself to the market. If the market thinks that the card is, or whatever the object is worthless, then you're going to get a worse deal. You're going to get a worse amount of money for the card that you got. And in the end, nothing lasts forever. We have to accept that. We have to accept that there is always going to be loss. There is always going to be opportunity, of course. But in the end, we have to accept that there is a risk that everything that we hold on to, if we are dealing with it in financial terms, will be worthless. And that we will lose value on it day in, day out. And in the end, we will see potentially very, very cheap collectibles. And then the next retro revival will begin. More than likely, quite a few years later, maybe 20, 30 years later. Who knows? Could be 10 years later, could be 5 years later. Maybe these things, as time goes on, compress closer and closer. Who knows? But in the end, we have to accept doing this as something to enjoy, as something that gives us joy. We look at those Club Penguin cards, for example, or Go-Go's Crazy Bones that we have, and we go, wow, I remember that. That was so cool. I remember playing Club Penguin. I remember enjoying myself. I remember playing with friends. I remember, collecting puffles or whatever. This object brings me joy. This object reminds me of good times. Times that I now, because of the closure of the Club Penguin official sort of avenue, can no longer access. And wouldn't taste the same because they're not viewed through the eyes of innocence, the eyes of a child, which is another topic I won't get into. But you can look at this object and be reminded of fonder times. And in the end, that is what we've got to realize, that all of this is really about. It's not about money. Money was always accessible at some level. If you want to go big and you want to invest and you want to keep every single box of every collectible possible, fantastic, go wild. You may make money, you may lose money. It's just as risky as stocks. Except, I suppose, in this instance, you own the object still. But if you are small time, like me, and I think it's very much so worth talking about small time people, because we are the small timers, we are the people who become the big timers if we have the will to do it, if we have the interest to do it. So actually listen to us is one point. But a second point is we need to look at the market as a whole, what it's done, and say whether or not we want to participate in that. Whether or not it is worth £50 for 50 Go-Go's Crazy Bones 90s edition from various mixed sets. Or if we are sufficiently exhausted with the entire market and go, no, I don't think that's going to last. I don't think Pokemon cards are worth whatever price is being charged for the latest set. Sitting it out, waiting it out, and basically investing in things that you are only interested in very focused drips and drabs, is the way to do it, I think. And more to the point, to stop looking at money, because money is always going to come in one way or another. It'll always come. But what won't come is the chance to enjoy your life, enjoy your hobby, enjoy all of these parts of what make collecting fun. And I guarantee none of it should be to do with money. As I say, in the next video, I'm going to sort of talk more about my journey in actually selling Pokemon cards and what I've learned from it. Because, as I say, as I'm very small time. I'm right at the beginning, and I am happy to be at the beginning, to tell you the truth, because I see things inflating so much. It terrifies me. It would not be possible for me to get into any of this in any meaningful way if it was now that I was starting to get into TCGs. I couldn't even get access to the cards. Just for a sort of a general tease of that video, my locals has only just got a restock of any Pokemon cards full stop. Any. Just now. Past couple of days. They've been out of stock for 2 months. Yeah. Things are getting kind of serious with Pokemon. But yeah, I thought you would enjoy that kind of overall perspective of collecting and the collector's market. I can go into this topic in many more details, so if you want another video discussing the market, the collector's market, let me know. Be sure to like, subscribe, all of that jazz. Thank you.